Welcome to the Thursday, September 27th, 2012 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're going to start with the first item on our agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Jens, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And right about now, our Fighting Indians are on ESPN, so this is a good time to say, go Vero Beach. Item number 2 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting of September 13th, 2012. Do I have a motion on that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who is the seconding on that, Mr. Chairman?
Jen.
Who was it?
Jens Tripson.
Jens. And the motion was made by Mr. Bragnano?
Correct. Very well.
Correct. Item number 3 is an item that is not on consent, and it is referred to as Reflections ALF, and it's a request for a major site plan approval for an assisted living facility. So the way we're going to begin this is I am going to ask all of the my fellow commissioners here if they have had any ex parte communications about this thing that would prevent them from judging it fairly. So if you have had any, go ahead and say so. If not, okay, we'll just move on. Secondly, because this is quasi-judicial, if there is anyone in the crowd who would like to give any kind of testimony or speak tonight, you need to be sworn in. So if you intend to do that, please stand up, and we'll go ahead and do that as well.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I think we're ready for the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Zimmerman. John McCoy with Indian River County Planning Staff. And this is a major site plan application for Reflections ALF. This same project was reviewed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners as a conceptual special exception on December 13th, 2011. As a major site plan that follows on the heels of the conceptual plan, this needs to be consistent with that conceptual plan, and it needs to meet all of the land development regulations that are applicable. So that's really the scope of our consideration in this application today. The conceptual plan really sets the compatibility related items, and at the special exception time, the board could require buffering in addition to what's required by the land development regulations, could require additional setbacks, could decrease the allowable intensity, scaling back the density or the intensity, and could also scale back the building height. And those are all compatibility issues that can be dealt with at a conceptual special exception level or a special exception level when it comes in. And the board did indeed do one of those things when they considered this special exception. They set a building separation distance of 75 feet from the proposed building to the nearest existing condominium building, which is in sort of the northern portion of the reflection site. The applicant is proposing a building separation of 84 feet, which is consistent again with the conceptual plan in that condition. The applicant seeks a final site plan approval of 125 bed ALF, which is consistent with the conceptual plan of 125 bed request. The staff has coordinated with the bank, which is an adjacent property owner, with the Reflections Condominium Association, and also with the county attorney's office. Next, I'd like to get to the location map, and I think most of you were on the Planning and Zoning Commission when this came through as a conceptual special exception. So you're familiar with the location. It's in North County, east side of US 1, right across from Schuman Drive. To the north of the subject site, you can see that it's zoned residential multifamily, RM6. The area of reflections that is adjacent to it on the south and the east is also zoned RM6. The property across US 1 to the west is commercially zoned. And you can see from the shaded area, which approximates the area of development, it's an irregularly shaped parcel. And it fits kind of like a puzzle into this particular piece, a puzzle piece. And that's because it's been part of the Reflections project, and it's a portion of that, and that was with the original plan. And that's why the area of development is so irregularly shaped. The aerial gives you a feeling of the actual physical features. Again, to the north it's vacant, it's zone multifamily, vacant to the north. You can see this is the building where the 75-foot setback is implemented adjacent to the area of development. The Reflections development east of the subject site, south of the subject site, South Mirror Lake Drive, US 1, and then the commercial development on the west side of US 1. Next slide I'd like to show is just the site plan, and it is consistent with the conceptual. The blue shaded area is the bank parcel, which is the bank is not to be considered, but there is a little bit of a development within the bank parcel. The brown shaded area is the building, and essentially this is a very similar layout to the conceptual plan that was considered by the Board of County Commissioners. Next item I'd like to talk about is the drainage. The stormwater for the entire area, including the bank, will be conveyed to the green area, which is a dry stormwater retention area. From there, it will go to the blue area, which is a wet stormwater pond, and after being treated in those two areas, it will be discharged to a ditch, flow out to a wetland, and then eventually to the Indian River Lagoon. Next slide is a traffic slide. And South Mirror Lake Drive and the Schumann US 1 intersection is a signalized intersection existing today. There is a right turn lane for the South Mirror Lake Drive on US 1. The applicant needs to slightly lengthen that right turn lane for the South Mirror Lake Drive. In addition, they need to widen South Mirror Lake Drive so there are two outbound egress lanes and a single inbound lane. The two outbound lanes will allow for a left turn lane, dedicated left turn lane, and then a right through lane to Schumann and north on US 1. At the north end of the site, there'll be a new driveway on US 1 that will also be served by a right turn lane. The black line on the slide illustrates the path of travel through the site. There'll be a driveway on South Mirror Lake Drive. You can loop behind the ALF building, or the driving aisle will be paved through the bank site so you can go to the front of the bank site. This will be a two-way driveway, so traffic can come in and exit here. So folks coming to the front of the facility don't even need necessarily to use a South Mirror Lake Drive. They can come in and come out of this driveway. Next item I'd like to talk about are some related items to the site plan. The site does consist of several separate parcels or portions of parcels, and thus there's the need for a unity of title for the combined project area, and that needs to be done prior to site plan release. There's a need for a fee in lieu of mitigation. There are some specimen trees being removed. The applicants proposed and the county's accepted a fee in lieu of mitigation. That will need to be done prior to the issuance of any land clearing or tree removal permits. There's a construction access issue, and Public Works approves our construction access. The applicant will need to get the construction access or accesses approved by Public Works, again, prior to getting the site plan release. They'll need to construct the turn lanes prior to the CO. They'll need to make sure the sidewalk is in good shape prior to the CO. They need to remedy or modify the split for the bank lot to conform with our Chapter 913 requirements, which is basically a frontage. So it's a little boundary line adjustment they need to do. And that needs to be done prior to site plan release. The US 1 corridor criteria are in effect here, and the applicant needs to meet those as well as a special exception criteria, and that's part of what we're reviewed and going through. And we'll also be inspecting for compliance at the CO point in time. They'll need to document compliance with the state of Florida criteria for ALFs, and they are limited to 125 beds. I'd like to touch base on the landscape plan and point a couple things out. There's an arterial road buffer along US 1. There's a local road buffer along South Mirror Lake Drive. There's also, and I didn't illustrate this, but you can see it on the plan in the black line. There's open space trees, there's vehicular open space trees, and there are foundation plantings around the building. As far as the buffering concerned, there's a type C buffer with a 6-foot opaque feature along the east property line, adjacent to the commercial area. And the 6-foot opaque feature will consist of a wall with some landscaping on both sides from the South Mirror Lake end drive to this point where it reaches the retention area. Then it will be done with landscaping for the rest of the commercial area, and then some additional landscaping to the north of that. I think most of you were here when this came to as a special exception, and the issue was raised of a legal dispute primarily related to property ownership with this project. That process is further along, but it's not resolved yet. So we've again coordinated with the county attorney's office as far as how to proceed in this matter and gotten advice from them. The dispute is between the applicant, developer, and the Property Owners Association, Condominium Owners Association, on about 2.5 acres of land. Was previously disclosed. The Board of County Commissioners was aware of that when they considered the special exception. There's currently no injunction, and I think that's the point going forward with the attorney's office, is that it can proceed forward. The applicant's aware if they lose any property that they'll need to modify the site plan to conform to or commensurate with the amount of property that's lost. So whatever it may be determined that they may not own, they would need to modify their plan to scale it back to that degree. The applicant's aware of that, and the applicant's aware that they're proceeding at their own risk, and I wanted just to make sure that the Planning and Zoning Commission was aware that that item was out there. With that, I would like to get to staff's recommendation. Staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission grant site plan approval with the conditions, and I'll briefly reiterate those: the fee in lieu of tree mitigation, approval of the construction access points, need to adjust the lot split, need to record a unity of title, they'll need to install the buffers, they'll need to construct those turn lane improvements, they'll need to maintain the sidewalk along US 1, they'll need to document compliance with the state requirements. They are limited to 125 beds, and if there is any reduction in the size of the property, that will require modifications to the site plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions of the presentation that we've just had before we move on to comments from the people who have been sworn in. None. Okay. So who should we begin with this evening?
I don't know if the applicant would want to, I think the applicant would have the opportunity to make any comments and then take comments at large.
Please do.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. County Attorney. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm the president of Black Swan Consulting and Entitlement Corporation, and I'm representing this project as well as being a part of it. I'm going to make a brief presentation, and then I would ask the Mr. Chairman if I could respond to any questions that might come up at the end of the presentation. I have my landscape engineer here today, and I have my engineer here today, so any technical questions that they would be best qualified to answer, I'll call on them after anybody speaks from the public. Briefly, as far as compatibility, that was a question that came up at the very beginning of this project. There's nothing, in my opinion, that could be more compatible than an assisted living facility on this site. Certainly the other things we could do, a Walgreens, a movie theater, a tattoo parlor, a shopping center, a gas station. All these things would be less compatible than what we're doing. And we purposely have designed our project and designed the buildings to replicate the buildings that are behind us as close as we can. We got the same roof line, we got the same colored roof, we got the same color building we're going to use. It's very similar to what's back there, so we try to be good neighbors and make this as compatible as possible. As far as the setback, we not only are setting back 84 feet instead of the 75, which is 25 over what we really had to start with. We've moved the building down south several feet so that we wouldn't be in front of any single-story building that they might have at Reflections, whereas before there was a space in between the single-story and our three-story, and they wanted 75 feet. We've maintained more than 75 feet, but we also moved the building down. So we did two things in order to try and accommodate our neighbors. Basically, as far as business and as far as what potential we bring to the neighborhood and the county, we're going to increase the tax base by about $180,000 a year. Our impact fees, we're going to pay impact fees of $435,180. These are both benefits to the county. We're going to create approximately 40 to 45 permanent job positions. Most of those job positions way above average pay, and our annual payroll is going to be about $1.6 million a year. These are huge benefits and assets to the community. And again, I can't think of anything that's more of a clean industry than actual people that live here, just living here. You know, we're not manufacturing a product, we're not making tires or batteries or anything like that. It's just people living here. So that's a very compatible, clean industry in my opinion. Now, I'm going to go ahead and sit down, and I would respond to any questions that come up or any comments that come up. I would respond to those comments. I don't want to take up any more of your time than I have to. If you have any questions before I sit down?
Thank you, Mr. Paladin. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Todd Howder, MBV Engineering. I'm the engineering representative for the Reflections community folks. I was actually in front of you guys about a year ago, or a little longer than that last time, and we have been involved along the whole way in the process with the TRC meetings and the BCC meetings after. So tonight I'm going to be using Elmo, just to show you a few items that we have to go over. I will say from where we are from 2011, we have the applicant's plans have come a distance in the positive direction for where we were looking at. Like Mr. Paladin said, back then in 2011, the one building, we all know it's a three-story building, was quite close to building 11. It was 40 feet. I think Commissioner Solari, after the BCC, actually put the condition for 75. It's actually 84 now, so we appreciate that, taking into consideration. The other items, the wall, they have finally agreed to put up a 6-foot-high buffer wall on their side, which would actually be 8 feet in height on our side, with landscaping, which is going to help. That actually came just on the last generation of plans, so we were very pleased to see that occur. The other items, and one thing I do want to say is I want to thank John and Stan's department as well as the other departments, because they've taken our comments and they have taken them under consideration. They've also made them part of some of the conditions, so we appreciate the county's planning and the other departments taking those as part of this project. A few other items, though, we do have concerns with that we want to make sure, should this project get approved, that they're remediated, they're taken care of, they're either put in as conditions, or that the county is made well aware of them that through the construction process. As we all know, it's a 3-story building right outside these folks' front door. That's going to be at points and times, it's going to be an inconvenience. We want to make sure it's done in a proper manner, in a safe manner, and that we will be involved throughout the project as the other set of eyes and ears for the engineering side, making sure the code is being met. The first exhibit I want to put on tonight is from the applicant's plans. We can turn Elmo on there, John.
Come on, just give me a second. There you go.
It's on. Okay. What you see here is a sheet from the erosion control / construction plan that they have set up. I believe it's sheet C2 or C3, one of those sheets. This is what I have highlighted is, as you can see, South Mirror Lake Drive. That is the only ingress and egress point into this site. There's a gate, as I wrote down in red, pointing to the gate location. They have this listed as a secondary access point. I know it's not the primary, but it's listed as the secondary. What we have asked for before and continue to ask for is that this is not even made as a secondary access point due to the fact that this is the only community entrance and exit. As you can see...
Let me ask a clarification. You mean for the permanent project or during the construction period?
During the construction. During the construction. This is all what I'm focusing on now is the construction of the project. I know it's going to take time. So and this brings up a myriad of really safety concerns. So if we have that as the only means of ingress and egress for the residents, should this be utilized at any point in time for secondary construction, you're looking for potential issues right here at the gate area where these folks would ingress and egress, interacting with large construction equipment. Secondly, God forbid there's an emergency where emergency vehicles have to come in and either enter the site or exit the site. That could pose a very significant conflict if we have construction activities happening in that location. Now, I know before there was, they had their other location off of US 1. What we're recommending is that they possibly get with DOT and reactivate. At one point in time, there was a temporary construction entrance a little bit further north that they could use as a secondary means. So we would like to see that as part of this process. To give you just a little bit clearer idea, I actually have I have an aerial that I like to put down so you can see it a little bit clearer. Put it your direction here. Let me make sure this has the right orientation so you guys can see. Up here is US 1. There's the gate I was referring to. So you can see that the construction activity was actually taking place right in this area. This is where the secondary ingress and egress would be for the construction trucks. That just poses, in our opinion, a very significant conflict in a dangerous situation.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
Isn't it also true, though, that, I mean, as part of their condition, they're going to have to widen South Mirror Lake Drive, and they're also going to have to put in an extra turn lane on US 1, so by the very nature of the project, this area is going to be disturbed, and there's going to be construction traffic there anyway.
It is, and that's actually one of my points I want to get to as well.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's, so yes, to answer your question, I'll get into that a little bit later on. So that's our one concern that we had, that we'd ask that the secondary construction entrance be taken away and that they utilize it off US 1. And what I'll do, Commissioner, I'll go ahead, let's just segue into that. Let's just go ahead and tie those two topics
I
together.
didn't mean to jump the gun. I was trying to understand.
No problem. No, we can work with it. We'll just tie it in together. When they actually have to do the widening of that lane, the same points come into play. Yes, they have to do it. It's part of the requirements. But what we have not seen an MOT plan. We know it has to be done. I do this as part of my job for our company as well. But we have not seen a proper MOT plan. It has to be a very thought out process. Again, back to this is the only means of ingress and egress. So we'd request that we work with the county, that there's a protocol set up that when this plan comes forward, it gets approved prior before the old boots on the ground, the construction equipment is put onto the site, that there's a very safe egress at that point, because they're modifying the egress lane, not the ingress. And there's a very narrow corridor. They don't have a lot of land to work with. So we asked during that time, it's going to be probably an on-the-go situation, that we have very safe conditions. And then if there's any issues that occur during that time, that the county reacts very quickly and swiftly to address any type of these emergency situations. And not only just the county, but the applicant. But we need to, we'd like to see a plan. We request we see a plan before it goes to construction of how they plan on addressing that construction, what width we have available for temporary pass-by, so the residents are well aware.
What is it that you have in mind that you would like to see from them?
I would like to see a plan of where they have the area that's going to be demarcated off, that's actually going to be coned off for the construction, and what width of lane they have left that they can pass by, so they can have a safe egress. We don't have it to where it's a 9-foot wide or a 10-foot wide. That's what we're looking for. I'd like to see a plan showing how they're going to address that.
Okay.
So, which we haven't seen. And that ties in the two. That ties in turn lane. That ties in construction. The other items is on. They had some notes that they were talking about as part of the erosion control plan and best management practices through the construction process. Is they have, and I'll just quickly read item note number 11. Plan shall be prepared and submitted to Interior County for review prior to pre-construction meeting. Elements of the program will address minimization and spread dust control to the residents, noise, so on and so forth. Gets into the construction process. We would ask that we be copied on that plan. We'd like to have a chance to review it as well before the county approves it. And they do have it where it's before they go to construction, but we would like to see a copy of that plan and be a part of that process to make sure the residents are taken care of as well. Item number 12, what they have is, this is during the construction process. They're putting up a sign box in case there's any complaints, any issues, that the residents have the availability. It's going to be there on site. Fill out their name, fill out the information, drop it in there. If you got a concern, the contractor will address that. We appreciate that. We like that, but we think we need to have a better protocol. What we would want to suggest and what we'd like to see is that if there's a concern, and we understand there should be one point of contact with the residents. They should elect some individual that will be the overseer, if you will, or take care of the complaints and whatnot, so there's not 10, 20, 30 people coming all out of the woodwork. We would like any comments or any concerns by the residents to be copied to the county, copied to the Reflections attorney, and also ourselves, so we're all made aware of what the complaint is, then as well as the applicant, so it's not just handled with the contractor. That way, if there's any concerns or issues, we all know about it, we can address it, we can resolve it, and it doesn't get into a he said, she said so much situation of, hey, I put the complaint in the box, well, I didn't see it. I don't know where it is. So we appreciate what they want to do. We agree with it. We would just like to take it just one more step to make sure that we're privy to those comments. Lastly, that we have on here is on the site plan. I'm going to go back to the wall. John, is there any way you can switch off back to the site plan that you had, showing where you had the wall? Thanks. Okay. Okay. North side where you see the green, that's actually where John has the arrow right now. That's where the buffer wall is, and we appreciate that. We think that's a positive. Yeah, when it stops and then goes forward into just a landscape, what we'd request is that we have at least at the minimum some type of fence, chain link fence, something to provide security to keep people from coming in from that site over the Reflections community. You can see how close it is to the existing building 11, but we request that we have some type of other security barrier just besides a berm and some bushes over there to keep people out. Doesn't have to be a wall, some type of fence. Regarding the wall, the last point I'd like to make is I'm going to throw another exhibit down. See if it switches over here and give it a few seconds. Okay, what I have highlighted is the proposed relocated fire hydrant. And that is actually on the inside, and that's presently serving the community right now. Serving that parcel, but also serving the residential community. Right now, that's actually on the inside of the wall that they're proposing to put up, so in case if they ever need to use a fire hydrant, it's no longer available for the firefighters in case they need it for the residents. What we would ask is the little red arrow, their little red cutouts that I have, is that in that section of the wall, we need to have a cutout, whatever the fire department would require, whatever is their minimum cutout distance, that they have access to that fire hydrant, and God forbid a fire start with that closest building, and the fire department needs to utilize that for firefighting purposes. So those are our issues that we would ask that would be incorporated into these conditions should this go forward and get approved. And if you have any questions, Sam, if you have anything more you'd like to add, I'm here to answer any questions you have, but we would request that those items be put in and thought through.
Have you presented these requests to the applicant?
We presented them. The latest ones we have not. We just got copies of their plans 2, 3, 4 weeks ago for this review. We have presented some of these to the county, but the ones I'm going over now was our first review. We haven't presented those to the applicant yet. So as long as if the applicant would take them and put them in, agree to that, we'd have no issue with that.
At first glance, Mr. Paladin, do you have any issues of concern with those conditions?
Not really. As far as the fence continuing down further than the wall to the end of that landscaping line, that's not really a a big problem. I just would like to point to your attention, right now, they have nothing protecting them from people coming through Highway 1 to their property. So, you know, it's not like we're enhancing that. But I have no problem doing the chain link fence or whatever with landscaping on the side. I'll work that out. If it makes them feel more secure, I'm a good neighbor, I'm going to try and do that. And as far as the secondary construction entrance, I don't have any problem making the secondary entrance the construction entrance further north. But I would say this, I wouldn't rule out entirely that it would never be a rare instance when I would have to use that main entrance in case. I wouldn't want to say never. I can't really say that at this time. I'm not the contractor on the job. The contractor on the job would work with me. We try and satisfy that need, but I can't guarantee that. But I would make the construction entrance a secondary entrance instead of the main entrance. I would agree to that. Is there something else that was there?
I'm assuming you have no issues with the fire hydrant
Well,
issue?
the fire hydrant, I have no issues at all with that. We can solve that a couple of ways, whatever's easier for everybody, by adding another fire hydrant. Or you got to realize our code says we have to have a cutout every 200 feet, basically, for animals to pass through and what have you anyway, I believe. So we could set that up and make sure that fell into that area there. And that would be an 18 by 32 inch cutout.
And I'm making sure I get all these. What about the complaint log with communications to all the parties that were referenced? And
I would be, I'm very much 100% in favor of the way he laid that out, you know, having one person as a point person and make sure I was copied on everything as well as the county so we could solve any minor problem instantly instead of letting it, you know, go on and fester into something that was, you know, more difficult. I'm in total agreement with that. That'd be an asset to everybody.
great.
There was the question about sharing with them the details of how you intended to construct the extra lane and just, you know.
Again, Commissioner Zimmerman, my contractor, which at this point it looks like it's probably going to be Proctor Development, I would sit down with them and have them set up that outline. We would adhere to all DOT standards, of course. And then once we did that, we'd be happy to share it with the county and happy to share it with our neighbors. But I don't feel comfortable making a firm standard on what I'm going to do for my contractor without him being a part of that. But
Mr.
we'd be
Chairman?
happy to share it ahead of time.
If I could make a statement, Stan Bowling, Planning Director, for the record. The first three items that Todd went over, including some of what we're talking about, the secondary construction access point, maintenance of traffic plan, and erosion control plan, those are all detail items that are looked at further down in the process, but before construction commences. The Public Works Director is the one who reviews and approves the construction access plan. And what we can promise is that the county will communicate with Todd about prior to approval of the construction access plan. The maintenance of traffic plan, I believe, is mostly going to be handled by DOT in this instance, but they'll coordinate with the county. Yeah. And the erosion control plan is reviewed by Public Works. So again, those are items that will be looked at later in the process, but we can promise that the county, that Public Works and Planning will be in communication with Todd Howder so he has a chance to look at those plans before they receive final approval. In terms of the sign box and complaints for the traffic, it sounds like that's something that needs to get worked out with the applicant, and we'd be more than happy to be on an email receiving end as staff, code enforcement, about complaints. And if there's any violation of county codes, we'll be involved with that if that happens. The wall and hydrant issue was brought up quite a while ago at Technical Review Committee. Details have been worked out with the fire department, and we can share those with Todd when those are available. And I heard the applicant say that they agreed to extending the fence. Staff's, because it's in the corridor, staff would be looking for black vinyl clad chain link fence to blend in, and of course they'll comply with the corridor if they put up that fence.
Just remember, no good deed ever goes unpunished, my friend.
Thanks a lot. No, everything we do will conform to the Highway 1 corridor plan. Absolutely. I just didn't mention the black chain link fence, but that's what we had in mind.
It sounds like there's a lot of cooperation and a lot of good communication. And I think the only thing that could screw this up at this point is if one party or the other, acts in the wrong way. So why don't we just move ahead and keep coordinating? I mean, you've got a very cooperative developer. He's put it on paper, and he said on the record here tonight that, I haven't heard him say anything but, yeah, I like your ideas and I'm willing to work with you.
Yeah.
So, compared to the things we've seen up here before, this feels really good. And if Don Proctor is in fact the general contractor, that would also be, I think, a benefit. That's just an if or a maybe, but it all seems like it's heading in the right direction.
It's a little stronger than an if or a maybe, actually.
Yeah.
We just haven't put it into a contract.
That's
We won't
a
keep it busy.
local person who's got.
Yeah, and you understand what this process is. It's come here to be on the record and so forth, and that's what gives us more the assurance that it's going to take place as opposed to just, okay, yeah, we'll do it, and we don't see it on the plans till the end. So
on the record.
That's what we wanted to see.
Great.
Now, from the engineering and technical side, that's all I got tonight. That's all I can do on my side. So we appreciate getting that on the record. We've got some other folks that may want to get up and talk about some
And in
other
reality,
things.
I'm a local developer. I've lived here for a long time. I've done several developments here. You all know where I live, and you all know where to find me. And I actually have enough guts to live in one of my own developments, so you can find me easily.
Thank you. Well done.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Hi, Tom. Why don't you give us your name and address?
Tom Tierney. My office address is 2101 Indian River Boulevard, Vero Beach. I represent the association. I'm the lawyer that's filed suit to quiet title to the land that the association claims ownership of. As Mr. McCoy said, it's 2.6 acres of the 6.8 acres in the project. That specifically, and probably most importantly for the purposes of this project, it includes the entrance roadway as well as basically the entire land that's going to be used for the stormwater management area. We've survived a motion to dismiss. The case is ongoing. The judge found enough merit in the case to continue forward. It is not yet set for trial. It is our position that the county should wait before giving site plan approval until the court decides the ownership issue and not allow this process to go forward. If you allow site plan approval and then the court determines that the association owns the stormwater management area at a time when the applicant has already started construction, you're going to have a project that is half finished and in the midst of a further legal dispute. I recognize that the county attorney has said we're going to allow this to go forward, but the applicant does that at his own risk. But I would submit to you that that's also a risk to the county if the project is stalled halfway done because the court determines that the association owns over a third of the project that is sought to be built upon. So from a legal perspective, my position is if you ought to condition site plan approval on a final court determination as to who owns the actual property that the applicant seeks to build on. Thank you.
Tom, I'm not an attorney, but seemed to be brought up by the county attorney in the presentation there. Have you filed for an injunction? You're just kind of asking us to have a temporary injunction on them going any further. Have you asked the court for that?
We have not. We have a list pendants that's recorded against the property that would protect our ownership interest, and we felt that was enough to protect our ownership interest, and we didn't need to go through an injunctive process either.
Okay. Thank you.
May I respond, Mr.
Please
Chairman?
do.
First, I'd ask for your county attorney if he has any response before I...
My only response is that, and as I think I said the same thing at the last time this came up, it's not at all unusual for a person who has no ownership interest to come before the commission with a project, a contract vendee, a person who has a contract to purchase a piece of property subject to its rezoning, subject to its site plan approval, et cetera, where there's only a paper relationship between the landowner and the developer is nothing uncommon at all. So here where we have a dispute, whether it's a dispute, who knows who will prevail, that hasn't been decided yet. As long as Mr. Paladin and his folks understand that they're proceeding at their own risk, if they do go to the construction stage and end up losing in court, they're going to, obviously suffer a great loss. As
Right.
long as they understand that.
And I'll
there's
go on
really nothing
record as,
that we can do to.
I'll go on record, it's very clear to me we're proceeding at our own risk at this time. Let me go ahead and address that briefly. In response to what Mr. Tierney said, yes, they do have a list pendants on certain parcels that are adjacent to the actual construction site. That's part of the drainage and the dry retention, et cetera. That's true. But as far as the credibility of that list pendants, I'm not here to argue that legal position, but I will tell you this. In order to keep that list pendants in place, the judge did order a bond be placed to keep that list pendants in place. So the bond was basically put in place because the list pendants was put in place and based on no legally filed document. Listen to what I just told you. It wasn't based on any legal filed document. So that's why the bond was put in place. Now, the list pendants is there. I'm not arguing that point. I have no problem with it. In reality, and if I say I or we or the people that, own the property, it's just an error of saying I don't mean to say that. As far as this, the list pendants and the bond and all that, listen, we have a bank note on the property. Have any of you ever tried to get a bank note on a property you didn't own? We have title policy, we have a deed. Now, he has the right to question the legality of it and to throw up the red flag and make the question. This isn't part of our decision, but I feel I owe you an explanation, so that's why I'm explaining it. We're very confident that going through the legal system, which will take a little time, we'll win, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, and we wouldn't be signing for a $20 million loan to build this parcel. We're very, very confident. And again, a list pendants, I pulled up the definition of list pendants before I got here because I thought this might come up. The common law notice of list pendants, this is taken from the Westlaw paperwork updated in September of this year. The common law notice of list pendants operation is to protect its proponent by preventing intervening liens that could impair or extinguish claiming property rights. Further, a common law notice of list pendants protects both the list pendants proponent and the third parties by alerting the creditors, prospective purchasers, and others to the fact that the title to the particular piece of property is involved in litigation, a contract dispute, just as your attorney said. Moving along. However, the mere filing of a notice of list pendants does not, of itself, create any interest in the property or superior rights for the property or the party filing the notice. Nevertheless, the mere filing of notice of list pendants, the mere filing of the notice of list pendants does not, of itself, create any interest in the property or superior rights of the party filing the notice. So that's what that's the definition of list pendants. So we're very clear that we're moving forward at our own risk, and I acknowledge that publicly, and I did it in writing to the county, and we have no problem proceeding in that manner.
I understand. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tom Cook. I am the president of Reflections on the River Association. I want to thank all you gentlemen and lady for taking your time and looking this over, and thank the planning board here. They've done a lot of good things. There seems to be, I agree with you, a lot of cooperation going back and forth. One of the major problems I see in this whole dispute, not so much of a building going on the property that has been outlined. It's the property that it's going on. And there's a number of different things that are going on here. It's all rolled into one lawsuit at the present time. There are two issues, the front entrance, and then there's the 2 acres that the drainage and retention area is going on. If there's any questions regarding that, it's best held off for our attorney to answer that. But we wouldn't be going through a lawsuit if we didn't feel confident that there was a reason to do so. That's my first comment. One of the things that, and I'm speaking on behalf of most of our residents, if not all of them, we're not objecting to the developer putting a project out there. And there's a lot of arguments pro and con about an assisted living. Many of the ones that Mr. Paladin mentioned, I happen to agree with. The whole issue that it boils down to is the size and scope of what's being put there. And I think when we went to the commissioners with the recommendation of you folks the first time around, 3 of the 5 commissioners did not feel the same way we did, but 2 of them did agree with us in one format or another. This whole thing, I think, could have been resolved to where everybody would be on a happy note if that building was not a 500-foot-long building. A 500-foot-long building is more than twice the size of any building in that immediate area, and certainly more than twice the size of whatever buildings we have in our own complex. I'm reading something that one of our folks, one of our owners, had addressed to Mr. McCoy, and he was good enough to write him back, and this is part of his email, and he cites in the criteria, general criteria for review of special exception uses. There's an A on that, consistency and comprehensive plan and zoning code. That would be in agreement with that, and apparently this is all in agreement because we wouldn't be at this stage if we're not. Compatibility with surrounding land uses. Just like to take a moment, just read this one paragraph. The proposed use and its location shall be compatible with surrounding land uses and the general character of the area, based on consideration of such potential impacts as traffic generation, drainage, nuisance impacts, lighting, appearance, and other factors potentially impacting the character and stability of the surrounding area. There's one key word in there that addresses our concern, and that is appearance. I compliment the developer on the design of the building, keeping in context with and trying to keep the compatibility of the look of the building with ours, all the buildings that we have in our development. But it still goes back to the fact that this is a 500-foot building, and that totally is not compatible. It is, you address it here. It's 500-foot building is part of the appearance of the building. So 500-foot building that was approved is totally in conflict with the regulations and the guidelines that are set forth by the folks who had put this together, and what the Planning Commission and what the Planning Board
I'm going to stop you for just a second because I want to ask kind of a technical question before we get too far down that road. Didn't we, I mean, wasn't this already decided in the first meeting? I mean, now we're just, that would have been a question that we would have addressed in December 2011, correct? About whether or not we would allow, you know, this as a permitted exception in this zone. And we agreed to that, right? Now, and now that once we've done that, now we go by the code that falls under. I mean, we can't go back now and say that this doesn't, you know, we can't put a 500-foot building there. It seems to me, I want to, it seems like we're beyond that point. That was the question of the first meeting, not of the second meeting that we're in today.
One of the factors you do have to consider is the one of compatibility. That's correct. It looks like there has been some change in the site plan by moving the building. Whether you want to consider that evidence in basing your decision on it is up to you. Whether Mr. Cook is able to offer that as a suggestion to the board is something else. I think he's free to go ahead and contribute anything he thinks might be able to influence the board or put his point across. It's just a matter of whether the board wants to consider it or not, that's all.
Okay, please carry on.
Okay.
Yeah.
In line with that comment, you know, when you're in negotiations and trying to get all people on the same page, and somebody brings an item up and it's addressed, which a lot of the items have been brought up and addressed, and again, I compliment everybody involved with that. The one sticking issue, and I just wanted to go on record with this, the size of that building is a monster, and it's going to overshadow that whole area. It's not, and I define any one of you to drive up and down US 1 and see that size building on that size piece of property. It just doesn't exist as far as we can find. So, you know, if something more could be done with, and again, the assisted living, we understand they have the special use that has been accepted and approved. That's fine. We can live with that. What we're trying to do is protect the community and protect our values by not having a wall built up in front of our complex. And a 500-foot building, as I said, is more than 2 times the size of any building in that area. Just want to throw that out for your consideration. I think that if any one of you were living in our position, you'd be concerned about the same thing. Most of the other things, I think the engineer and Mr. Paladin's group and the planning board have taken all those comments into consideration and have done a pretty decent job with them, and I compliment everybody, and thank you for all your cooperation.
Thank you for your testimony. It's appreciated. Mr. Paladin?
Mr. Chairman, actually our building now is 372 feet long. Not that it matters. And it's just a square long building, if you can see from there. We have it broke up in 2 or 3 different breakups. We have a pool in the middle, we have different setbacks and set-ins, so it's just not a flat one-run building. So it wouldn't be much different than if you had 2 buildings that was 170 feet long. I mean, it is what it is, but it's broken up every place where you could possibly look at it. You got setbacks and different elevations, and it's just not a straight run of a cement building. So I just want to make that point clear.
And did I hear you correctly? You also said in the space, in the 84 feet between the nearest spot of their building and your building, let me understand, there's a type C buffer.
Yes, sir.
And you've agreed to build an 8-foot wall.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So all of that is visually breaking up the
facade. One of the major things was not only the 84-foot separation, which is huge, but the separation isn't between the building. The separation would be corner to corner, because we moved the building down, so that building's no longer in front of that.
It's not like this. It's like this.
Yes, sir.
And it's this direction.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you, sir. Anything else?
Mr. McCoy, what is directly across the street from this project? Is that the public shopping plaza?
My name is Robert Ashcroft. I live at 6283 North Mirror Lake Drive.
Can you just give us one time out and let Mr.
Let me just queue up the aerial here, and I can explain or answer Mr. Cabral's question. It is some general commercial offices in the Sebastian area. This is Schumann Drive. This is largely a vacant. It's got a small building at this location, and then a strip plaza and some offices further north.
Is there any large commercial around here at all? I'm just trying to picture that in my mind.
Not that I can recollect.
Strip mall is in there and everything. Okay, thank you.
What is that parcel across the road zoned?
It's in the city of Sebastian, and it's zoned commercial. I can't tell you the exact abbreviation of their type of commercial.
Okay. Sorry to have interrupted you, sir.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you. Could I, this retention pond area, if you take a look at that and just go to the east, you'll see a unit in there of reflections. If you could put that up on the screen, it would, so everybody could see that. That's the one that you had of the retention area. Yes, you see the building there where the green is around on that, and that's building 11. And I am in, my resident is the middle building there. I've been there for 13 years. And as Mr. Powell said before, that people can come in and out and go through that. If it wasn't for your bad knee, I would take you along there and I would follow you as you try to get through that area. But if you want to send a substitute, I'll be happy to walk with them.
I'll just take the word for it.
Okay, it's impossible to get through there. I'll tell you, things that I do get through there We have bobcats in there. Matter of fact, there's a family of them in there right now, and there's two cougars that go in and out through that. So that's the kind of area that is.
I definitely won't be going through that.
Oh, okay. The other thing is that my point is on the green that you have there. You can see where the concrete wall ends. Well, I'd like to have the concrete wall go completely across the back area where the green is, for more than one reason. One of them is a chain link fence does not stop the noise from coming through. And I can tell you, I'm well aware of what noise comes through there when we had the hurricane and all the leaves and everything blew off of them trees. We had a tremendous amount of noise there until that grew up. So Mr. Paladin, if he would consider this to put the concrete wall all the way to the end, it would be a big help to us in the whole community, because there is a tremendous amount of noise. And a chain link fence does not look very good out my back door, and I spend a lot of time out there because it's a nice private area. So I would like that to be taken into consideration.
May I address?
Please do.
Mr. McCoy, can you point to where the solid wall stops at this time?
It's right at this junction.
Yes, it actually goes into that green area. Now, you got to understand, when we're talking about a chain link fence, we're not talking about putting a fence up there with nothing. You can't put a fence up there without landscaping it. You have to put landscaping in front of the fence. There's just not going to be a blank fence. There's going to be landscaping.
Do we need the landscaping in there? I would rather have the wall there, and we can put our own landscaping in on the wall if we
Well, actually, you would put your own landscaping on the east side. I would put landscaping on the west side.
Well, you can do that
So
too.
between the two landscape buffers,
If it
you would have
becomes-
an opaque feature, basically.
If it becomes your property, you can do as you please with it. In the meantime, I would like to have this into consideration for the board to take this into consideration, that a solid wall along there would be a big help to us who live in that place, and we've been in peace and quiet for many years. And I'd like to continue my remaining years, which I don't know how many it is. I hope my family has longevity, and I'm 85 right now, so I intend to be around for another 10 years. So.
God bless.
Okay.
At this time, Mr. Zimmerman, I would commit to the chain link fence that I was asked to supply, and I would commit to adequate landscaping in order to make that basically a more silent feature than just an open chain link fence. As far as going to a concrete or our wall continue down there, I'm not 100% ruling it out, but I'd have to give it some consideration. But I will commit to the fence and the landscaping at this time, for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else tonight who would like to speak on this issue, or have we heard the issues? Okay, discussion?
I have one question for the attorney. Is it possible that this development could be completed before the land issue is resolved?
Yes, it's possible.
And what would happen in that event?
Reverse construction. Or the sides would have to go ahead and work out some sort of purchase agreement for the property they need. It's rare, but it does happen.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address, what I'm looking for is to really go forward on parallel tracks. While we're going through the court system to settle this contract dispute, we go through the system in the county to get our project approved and get it started paperwork-wise and et cetera, and to get it going. I'm certainly not going to put myself in a position financially to do unconstruction, as Mr. DeBrawl pointed out.
Reverse construction. Reverse construction.
Reverse construction. I'll be very forthright in going forward that I'm not going to take an unnecessary risk. That's just not good business, and I pride myself on being a good businessman.
Good to know.
Thank you, sir.
My only comment is both sides are to be commended that you've worked it out as well as you have, and good on the county for being good facilitators of that. And I can see that, all compromises have some wins and some losses for both sides. That's the very nature of it. And it seems to me that a lot has been accomplished for the benefit of this community while allowing this process to take place. So I'm ready to go to a vote if the rest of you feel the same, but we're still in the comment phase. So unless I can call for a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry, who seconded that?
Who seconded it? Jen's seconded it. Were there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item number 4 is a legislative public hearing. It's the first of 2, and the first is a county-initiated request to amend the text of several elements of the county's comprehensive plan. I would, we've all been through this many, many, many times, and I know that all of the, well, I shouldn't say all.
No, not all.
Not all. Most of the commissioners have gone through this, so I won't ask you to be very, very brief because we have a new one here. But let's get through this one as quickly as makes sense.
Good evening. We're going to try. Stand. Would you switch it to? As you mentioned, this is a county-initiated comprehensive plan text amendment. But however, especially because we have a new member, and also for the sake of the whoever is, if anybody watching at home, briefly I'm going to go through the process. The application usually submitted to the Community Development Department. Then we come here.
Hey guys, can you move that? We're having a hard time here. Can you move that into the hall? Thank you. No problem.
Then the first public hearing is before the Planning and Zoning Commission, which here we are. And after that you review, you recommend to the Board of the County Commissioner to either approve it or deny it. Then we will take it to the Board of the County Commissioner for transmitter public hearing. If the board decide to transmit it, then we would send it to state and regional review agencies. They would review it, they give us their comment. We respond to their comment, we would take it to the Board of the County Commissioner for the third and a final public hearing. If they approve it, we would send it back to the state review agency. Tonight, we are revising 3 policies of the 3 elements of the comprehensive plan: future land use, potable water sub-element, and recreation open space element. In future land use element, we are deleting policy 1.48 based on your recommendation and based on the direction from the Board of the County Commissioner. This policy was the density transition that was put in the boom when everybody was trying to build, and the policy was saying that if a subdivision come to next to another subdivision that have lower density, they have the new subdivision, they need to lower the density adjacent to the other one. And when we came to you for the LDR amendment, then you said why we penalize the new development because they are both residential and he is entitled to that density. We went to the Board of the County Commissioner, they agreed with you, and they told us to delete the policy. And that is what we are doing. And then, since we are deleting that policy, in order not to have a gap between the policy, we are just renumbering policy 1.55 to 1.48. The next policy is policy 14.1. Up to last year, a state would not allow us to amend our comp plan more than twice a year. And we had 2 windows. In January and July, we accept the comprehensive plan amendment. Last year, a state, they removed that prohibition from their rules and regulation. However, at the county level, decided that we're going to keep those ones. The comprehensive plan is very important. Everything that we do in the county is based on a comprehensive, and we don't want to go and revise it and amend it very often. However, recently, Board of the County Commissioner, they decided to go to 4 windows per year for accepting the application. And the reasoning was that they don't want to delay any project because of some applicant, they have to wait till next window. And with the revision, now we're going to accept the application in month of January, April, July, and August, and October. In Potter water sub-element, we're going to make 1 minor changes. There is a policy regarding reviewing the fee structure. Basically, policy was saying that by 2011 they have to revise it. They are saying that their fee structure is fine. Currently, they don't want to revise it. However, they want to change it that by 2013, they're going to review it. And after they review it, if they need it, they're going to revise it. In recreation and open space element, we had several policies that they had an implementation date of 2010 through 2013. None of them is really critical at this point, and they want to postpone it to later on. And that is what they're doing with the recreation open space element. All of these things is consistent with the comprehensive plan, especially with this policy that's saying that one of the 4 criteria should be met. This is a substantial change based on your recommendation, based on the Board of County Commissioner direction, and request by the other department. We are going through this process. And we are recommending that you recommend that the Board of the County Commissioner approve these changes to the text of the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have one question for staff, if that's all right. On what's called page 47 under the recreation and open space, 1.9 and 1.10. What kind of oversight is there as far as privatization in 1.9 and naming rights in 1.10? I mean, I realize we're just really basically changing the date from 2011 to
Yeah, could you tell me which policies those are again, Jim?
It's policy 1.9.
Right.
And 1.1, 1.10.
Yeah, by the way, I'm Bob Keating. I'm County Community Development Director. A lot of the times we defer to the departments and coordinate with them when we're doing changes to the comprehensive plan elements that affect them. And here, I think this is a type of policy that has the whole support of the Board of County Commissioners. You know, I think whenever it is feasible and prudent, the board would like to privatize activities. We have done some privatization with the Recreation Department, particularly with maintenance of facilities. We've done some privatization of that recently, and partnerships. That just makes sense. You may have read about the new South County Multi-Generational Center. That again, we're entering into partnerships to do the operations. And again, it's a financially feasible way for us to do things. So this policy really makes a lot of sense. It's good. It has the full support of the Board of County Commissioners. And the policy 1.10, the naming rights, that always gets very, very difficult. But again, this policy really says the Recreation Department is going to look at these things, it's going to evaluate them, and the final decision will be the Board of County Commissioners. Okay. But I think both of these policies really make a lot of sense, particularly in this era of austerity where we're trying to do more with less, we're trying to have partnerships, we're trying to look at innovative ways to enhance revenue. So I think these are really good objective policies that really have the final support. The final decision is with the board. It's not going to be made by the staff behind closed doors.
Yes.
Gents, I think two good examples would be Indian River Soccer Association, where they they built the fields and maintained them on county-owned property. Same thing up in Sebastian as far as North County up there. Those are two good examples where we don't run the program, they do.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
With policy 14.1, does the state, the state doesn't have any deadline windows now, it's just open?
They're all open, yes.
And the county decided to go from the 2 to the 4?
Yes.
And why is it staggered the way it is? Why didn't they just go quarterly throughout the year? Why did they stagger the months the way they did? Because the months are January, April, July, and October.
Yeah, that's basically, we decided that since we're going to go 4 times every quarter, we could accept the applications. Like 4 times a year, like every quarter.
Okay, so it's 1 month in the quarter, but not evenly staggered?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Wait, Mr. Chairman, I believe this is a public hearing. I'm going to open it quickly and...
We're going to open up the public hearing for all these empty seats. Anybody have anything to say? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for keeping me on my toes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendations.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Regnano, did you second that motion? Yes. Okay.
The second of item number 4 is Graves Brothers' request to rezone approximately 14 acres from CH to CG. Now, this is, again, a quasi-judicial thing, so I'm going to begin this by asking, are there any ex parte communications that anyone has had regarding this? Okay, I'm going to say I have had some ex parte communication, a very brief one. Jeff Bass wrote me an email. He's a friend of mine. He wrote me an email to ask if I was still on the county P&Z, and I said, yes, I am, and that was the extent of it. And I also served with him on the board of St. Edward's School, but we have not specifically discussed this issue, so I feel confident that I can make a rational decision on this. We're ready for the presentation.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody who, thank you. Anybody who wishes to speak on this matter, please stand so that you can be sworn into the record.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
We're ready for the presentation.
Okay. This is about 14.15 acre located at the southwest corner of Old Dixie Highway and County Road 510, as shows in the area with the red outline. And the applicant is proposing to change it from CH, which is heavy commercial, to CG, general commercial. And both CH and CG, of course, is acceptable under the land use designation, which is CI, commercial industrial. The property to the north is zoned CG, CH, and IL, and they contain different commercial buildings. Property to the west, zone CH, and contain a commercial building. Property to the south is PD and is a golf course. Property to the east is CG, and the northern portion it has CVS, and the southern portion is vacant. Like any other rezoning, we reviewed these 4 criteria: concurrency, consistency with the comprehensive plan, environmental impact, and compatibility with surrounding area. As far as the concurrency, these requests meet all of the concurrency bad traffic. However, in a county we have several different type of concurrency. We have initial concurrency, which is at time of development, that the applicant at that time, they apply for a specific project and pay all of their impact fees. At that point, we reserve the capacity for them. At the time of a rezoning or land use amendment, we just do the conditional concurrency. Conditional concurrency look to make sure that at this point, there is sufficient capacity to meet the requirement of the project, or we identify what needs to be done And we're going to let the applicant know through the conditional concurrency that at time of a development, they cannot get approval unless they meet these requirements. In this case, the requirement is that County Road 510 from 66th Avenue to US 1 should be 4-lane. Also, the intersection of the US 1 and County Road 510 should be fully extended. When times come for development, these improvements should be either constructed by that time, should be under construction, or should be in the first 3 years of the county's capital improvement plan. If they are, they could proceed and they could get with development. Otherwise, they cannot. With that condition, then they meet the concurrency. As far as the consistency with the comprehensive plan, the land use designation is CI. 3 sides of them, they have a same land use, and basically they are consistent with the comprehensive plan and some of the policies we identified here. For environmental impact, going to be the same under either zoning. There's not going to be much difference under each zoning. As far as compatibility, again, to the south of them is a golf course, and to the east, north, and west, they are commercial, and they are also proposing commercial, therefore they are compatible. There's no problem with that one. In conclusion, the requested CG zoning is compatible with surrounding area, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, conditionally met the conditional requirement, and there is no adverse environmental impact. Staff supported, and we recommend that you recommend to the Board of the County Commissioner that property be rezoned from CH to CG. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Do you wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Joseph Scholke with Scholke Biddle & Stoddard of Vero Beach, Florida. I'm here with Mike Ray from Graves Brothers. I prepared the application. We've reviewed the staff report. We agree wholeheartedly with their conclusion. I don't think I have anything significant to add other than to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions to the applicant? Any comments?
I'm assuming notice was given.
Yes.
No response?
No response, no.
No, and just to tell you, we had legal notice in the newspaper. We sent notices to surrounding property owners, and we put a sign on the property.
Actually, we put a sign in both County Road 510 and Old Dixie too, to make sure that everybody sees.
If there are no comments, do I have a motion?
I'll move to...
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. The public hearing is now open. Anyone wish to speak? The public hearing is now closed. Discussion or a motion?
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
You need to tell her who did the...
Yeah, she'll figure it out. Item number 5 on our agenda tonight is Commissioners' Matters. Are there any? Item number 6, Planning Matters.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly to let you all know, there are 2 meetings scheduled for October 11th and October 25th. And we do anticipate that we will have those meetings. We have items, so count on those 2 meetings in October. That's all that I had.
It's a little more deal flow coming through the county these days?
More LDR amendments.
Sorry.
We'll get it right one of these
You're brain
days.
damaging us with those. Okay. Item number 7, Attorneys' Matters. Are there any?
No, sir.
We're adjourned.